All right, welcome to the NBA DFS build. Today I'm Taylor Smith along with Kevin Roberts. This is a half-hour show where we talk about an overview of the day's NBA DFS slate on DraftKings. If we help you in any way, please do us a favor and hit the like button below this video and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Our process is typically aimed at single entry tournaments, but you can apply it to anything, large fields, small fields, whatever you want. In addition to your own process, we're recording this early. It's only 1:12 Eastern as of this recording, so keep in mind that injury news can always change the slate and likely will. Speaking of injuries and weird sounds coming from Kevin, we have gotten some news already. Boston will be shorthanded tonight. Al Horford is out. Kristaps Porzingis is doubtful. Luke Cornett is out, which is actually meaningful. Jaylen Brown questionable for them as well when they take on the Magic at home. Zion questionable, missed the last game, did do shoot around today for the Pelicans. PJ Washington questionable on the other side of that game. Mark Williams not expected to play. LaMelo Ball, of course, still out for the Hornets. Marvin Bagley, Jalen Duren out. Josh Okogie out. Eric Gordon and Grayson Allen are questionable for Phoenix. Markelle Fultz is questionable for Orlando, game time decision. Desmond Bane, Jordan Poole, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Taurean Prince, and DeAndre Hunter are also all questionable. So hopefully you jotted all that down and committed it to memory because that will be the last time we go over that. In the meantime, I guess we can just get started with this first game, which is Pacers-Wizards. Highest total we've seen all season, 260 points. The Pacers are 9.5-point favorites on the road with a 134 total. So, Kevin, let's start with Indiana. I assume Tyrese Halliburton will be a core play for most people on this slate because of the matchup, and he's Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah. No real reason to not play him except for the fact – actually, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, very expensive. Number two, hasn't been that great, actually. And number three, massive blowout potential here. So it is a weird slate where there's only like 4 truly elite spends and technically less than that because Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are both healthy. So he's certainly in play, but I mean, I could argue for a fade, much like yesterday where Jokic and Luka both looked fantastic and both were very good. You didn't need them. You didn't need them to place highly and do well. We both cashed. You didn't have Luka in that one you cashed that we did, right?
No, that was a what's his name? Shea and James Harden were my spends.
Yeah. So, okay. But the logic is still, pretty similar here. When you look at the top raw projections here, he is number 2 at 58. So no qualms about playing him if I get there, but I don't think I'm going to force him necessarily.
I mean, the matchup could not be better. The Wizards are last in defense. They are near the top in pace as well. Indiana, of course, first in pace and like 27th in defense. This game, it does have shootout potential. Like the Wizards are severe underdogs, yet they do have the second highest total on the slate at 125.5. So the Pacers aren't stopping anyone. The Wizards aren't stopping anyone. Halliburton for 11.3. I think you could argue he's still a little underpriced. Your point about him not being great is a fact, but he does have quite a high floor. This slate does not have a lot of great spends outside of Embiid, but that game has even more blowout risk, I would say. So of the two, I'm more inclined to cram in Halliburton.
Oh, 100%. If you're going to spend for somebody on the slate, it's going to be Hallie. And the only thing is, like, Trey is over 1,000 less than him and only projects for 6 fewer fantasy points. So to me, he's the better play. And then you could still go back to the argument of you just don't need a stud on this slate because every time you pay for somebody over 11K, you're hunting for some cheapie that is possibly going to crater your lineup, right? So he's probably going to get you 60 or so. The only question is there that awesome value to, make it? Not right now, not really, but we'll see. We'll see what opens up. It's early still.
Yeah, we have to get something, I would think. There are enough stars questionable to where something could pop, but as of now, it's pretty grim out there. Miles Turner, 7,500, looks solid. Don't love the minutes, but again, you cannot find a better matchup than this, and he has a ceiling still, even in 31 projected minutes. Buddy Hield looks pricey to me. Bruce Brown looks pricey to me. TJ McConnell, overpriced as well. Ben Mathurin, really boom or bust off the bench. Like, even with the total, I don't love anything else from Indiana except for Turner and Halliburton.
Yep.
I suppose Isaiah Jackson is a viable punt just because his minutes have been okay of late, but that's not the most comfortable value, especially at center only.
As gross as Isaiah Jackson sounds, I'm not even going to say anything negative about it because your like ancillary calls lately have been smashing. Like if I balk at somebody, they fucking kill. So I'm not going to say shit. Especially with a possible blowout, he could get a ton of run in the fourth quarter. But if you kind of ignore the game environment, I agree. Nobody else looks really worth going after except for the top two guys here. Miles Turner is probably the best play in this game, in my opinion. Pretty good price, really good projection, and smash spot. So I might be leaning towards him, and I don't like anybody else other than Hallie.
On the other side, we have Washington. Jordan Poole, as mentioned, questionable again. He did play the last game through a Q tag. I'm just assuming he's going to play unless we hear otherwise. Luckily, this game is at 7 Eastern, so we will have the news in time. The Wizards are gross. They have a pretty deep rotation. No one really projects for a boatload of minutes for this team. I suppose if anyone has a ceiling, it's Kyle Kuzma. But we're getting no discount at 8,400. He's power forward only. He's a bit of a tough sell for me. Daniel Gafford, again, mid-range center. Minutes are never great. Not dying to get there. Jordan Poole, maybe the worst player in the NBA. Denny Avdia is 6,200. You can play him at either forward. If I'm getting to anyone here, I suppose it would be him. But it's kind of yikes with this team too, even with that massive total.
Yeah, I think if you pay for the top two guys on the Pacers, some kind of stack iteration makes good sense. So that's probably the main selling point for any Wizards. I like Kuz in theory, but for this game, he actually doesn't really project that well. Like 39 is pretty meh for 260 total. You would imagine the top option on this team, if the game stays competitive, would project a lot better than that. But I'm assuming the blowout risk is baked into that projection too. But I'm actually 100% with you. Denny looks really good. The price isn't exactly what I would prefer because he can be pretty risky. But the Pacers rank 22nd in rebounds allowed, and he can be a rebound machine. And obviously the game environment, fast paced, a lot of no defense, a lot of scoring. I will point out for thinking about any Wizards that the Pacers, at least the last time I checked, were ranked number 1 in fewest 3-pointers made allowed. I don't know why, but that is a fact. And their defense actually has been better than it was earlier in the year. So those are things worth noting. I don't think that would deter me, especially if I'm interested in a game stack. But yeah, I'm with you, Denny. He's probably the only Wizard I really actually like.
I think Tyus Jones is viable, but I don't love that he's playing like mid-20s minutes every night. It's really low floor with him, and I'm not sure there's much of a ceiling there either. On that note about Indiana maybe leading the league in 3-point percentage allowed, they also allow the most points in the paint. So I think that's
Right.
just teams are allowed to walk into the paint against them and
Gafford,
score at will. So
yeah.
why?
Yeah, Gafford would look a little bit more appealing there. Who else on their team really attacks though? They're kind of a chucker squad.
Yeah, that's why they're trash. So.
Right. So I would say Gafford is like a secondary play when looking at this matchup, just because foul trouble and minutes can be in check sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it's a good matchup for him for sure. And then that rookie, how do you say?
Koulibaly.
Yeah, his minutes have been good. Good matchup. He's only 5.4. I wish he was cheaper, but that's not that bad for this spot.
I think if I'm getting anyone here for a single entry build, it's going to be Avdia, and I'm just moving on with my life after that.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of moving on, let's go to the next game. Pistons at Philly for the second time in 3 days. Sixers are favored by over 2 touchdowns here. Massive, not massive, but a healthy 235 total in this one. Blowout risk, very obvious. Starting with the Pistons, I don't see a single thing I want to play here. 21 game losing streak for this team. I suppose maybe Bojan Bogdanovic, 6,800 forward eligibility. I don't know. He's quite scoring dependent. It's just ugly all around. Asar Thompson's price has come up a little. Do you like anything on the Pistons side?
The only thing that's worth noting and still probably not worth pursuing would be the fact that both Duran and Bagley are out. So somebody's got to play center for the Pistons. And as much as that sucks going up against Embiid, there's that. But James Wiseman's price sucks, and so does he. So Isaiah Stewart, maybe he looks okay. If he's like your last guy in, I would not prioritize any Pistons whatsoever. If for some reason you are really just dead set on playing Embiid, then I would maybe consider running it back with Bogdanovic or Cade or Azur. He's a good price. But yeah, I don't want to play Pistons, and I'm almost definitely fading this game.
Yeah, I mean, Embiid is the only guy you'd want here for obvious reasons. He's under 12K. I saw that he's played 20 games this season, and in 7 of those games, he hasn't played a single minute in the fourth quarter because they just keep smashing everybody, including Detroit the other night. We saw that same situation. Still has a ceiling. He still had 41 points and 11 rebounds, 5 assists in that game. He's going to dominate. I fully expect him to put up 60 plus again. But if I'm paying anyone, like I said earlier, I think I'd just rather play Halliburton.
Yeah, and the thing with what we're doing is we're looking at single entry, so we're just really trying to prioritize the best plays and then 1 or 2 ways to get a little bit different so we can climb up. And Embiid is a really good GPP play in general because nobody's going to own him tonight. Everybody's going to be looking at Halliburton in the Pacers game. He projects for 3.8% ownership at the moment. Obviously, they'll tick up a little bit or maybe a lot if value opens up. But to me, the only reason you're playing him is if you just want to get really different and you want somebody that nobody has and can get like 70 plus, which is fine. But I don't think I'm going to do that.
Next up, New Orleans visiting Charlotte. 8.5 point spread in this one. Zion questionable for the Pelicans. Obviously, that's a huge needle mover. We saw him sit the other night. Dyson Daniels started and then got banished to the bench because Trey Murphy decided to go insane off the bench.
Oh, I know. I'm aware.
They aren't really much more expensive than they were the other night. Valanciunas is over 7K, but really no one else saw a huge price bump. So if Zion's out again, I'd imagine this is going to be a huge source of value.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, right now the projections make it look as if he's going to play, and he did participate at shoot around. So I'm assuming he's back. If he is not back, you're 100% correct. Everybody is in play. Obviously, Ingram, CJ McCollum, and JV are the priority plays. And then, I mean, I don't think it's chasing to go after Trey Murphy. That's fine. He's fine still. And Herbert Jones and I guess Dyson Daniels would all be viable. But I think Zion's going to play.
Flipping to Charlotte, Mark Williams not expected to play. LaMelo still out. PJ Washington questionable. Nick Richards should start again at center. Minutes haven't been great, but he's still relatively cheap. Center only, but so that's kind of limiting. Brandon Miller looks pretty good in the mid-range. Terry Rozier has been filling it up with LaMelo out. Gordon Hayward and Miles Bridges still see plenty of minutes. I think both look a bit more secure if PJ is out. I do have a lot of interest in this team. I think Rozier in particular is a very good tournament play, even at a higher salary.
Yep, projects really well. You could convince me to play basically anybody here, especially if PJ's out. The fact that Mark is already not going to play and PJ's questionable makes Nick Richards currently a core play for me. I'm already putting him in at center. He played 40 minutes last game. I don't see any reason not to play him. Chalk be damned. I don't care. And we'll talk about that too. If he's going to play even 30 plus minutes at that price, I want Nick Richards. And I do think I might not care if PJ Washington is in either. I like Nick Richards anyways, but I do prefer PJ Washington to be out. I like Brandon Miller. He's playing a ton of minutes. Hayward's fine. Bridges is a good price. I would probably fade Rozier and try to use somebody just a little bit cheaper, but he's obviously a very good play.
Next up, we have the Lakers and Spurs, another game that we had on Wednesday night, a rematch in San Antonio here. Last one, LeBron missed with his calf injury. He's questionable again tonight. I think he'll play. I think that was just a back-to-back thing, and him being an elderly man kind of thing.
He's an old.
Anthony Davis, questionable as well, and Jared Vanderbilt is probable, I believe. Or is he questionable? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. It's Jared Vanderbilt.
Taurean Prince is also questionable for whatever.
Taurean Prince is questionable.
Whatever it's worth.
AD and LeBron are always too cheap on DK. I don't know why they never raise the salaries, but both pop as two of the best spends on the slate. The Spurs are a terrible team, terrible defense, play at a fast pace. I prefer LeBron for 600 less, but certainly don't think you're doing it wrong if you prefer AD instead.
No. It's a great spot. Honestly, this might be my favorite game to stack. If people are going to be focused on the Wizards game, I might just go here. I don't really have a lean. LeBron's cheaper. I also expect both of them to play. But yeah, I think LeBron and then with Wemby on the other side or something makes a lot of sense here.
If those stars play, I'm not really inclined to pay for D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves.
No.
Both are priced up for LeBron to be out like he was in the last game.
Agreed.
The Taurean Prince news doesn't move the needle much either. Like they have enough guys between Reddish and Hachimura and Vanderbilt to just, spread those minutes pretty evenly, and they're all pretty bad per minute to begin with. So
yeah, they just eat each other. So unless they're in a featured starting role, what's the point of that? We're gonna find better value probably.
Moving to San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama feasted again the other night. His minutes have been up lately. He's played 32 plus in 4 straight. He's a little more expensive, but you can argue he should be a 10K player, and he's 9,100. Really don't see any reason not to go back to the well. I don't love typically targeting games, with these teams that have seen each other twice in the last 3 days, but it is what it is. We have 4 such games on this slate, so you can't really avoid them. Wemby's just underpriced, and I don't see any reason not to pay for him, especially if you're not paying all the way up for Halliburton or Embiid.
Yeah, and that honestly, that could be a little bit noisy, especially since the Lakers kind of blew them out last time. Maybe the Spurs will come back. Oh, did it go the other way? No, the Spurs lost.
It was close. It was a 3-point game.
I thought it was a blowout. Maybe I'm thinking of one of the Mavs games. Anyways, it still looks like a really good game environment, and I don't put too much stock into the fact that they played recently. Like you said, the slate is the slate. I mean, if we rule out 4 games, then we're really putting ourselves into a corner. He does project to be kind of chalky, 25% owned. So fading a 9K Wemby isn't like a bad strategy or anything. But he does project well, and like you said, he is still way too cheap. So I love him. I don't like any other Spurs play, though. Although it's a good game environment, I don't think it's a bad idea to play Spurs. Nobody stands out.
I think you can get to Keldon or Sohan or Vassell. Keldon's minutes have been fine lately. Vassell's salaries come down a little bit, but I really don't think he's necessarily underpriced. Sohan just doesn't do enough while he's out there. Like the minutes have been okay lately, but he just gets no usage. He can't shoot. He is not handling the ball as much as he was earlier in the year. I'm really, like you said, I'm not dying to get to anything else here either. So let's move on to the next game, Magic at Celtics. Boston's favored by 4.5.
Ooh.
Low total here, 225. Boston with a bunch of injury news. Orlando still without Wendell Carter Jr. Markelle Fultz is questionable. Boston's a bad matchup. Both teams are good defensively. This game seems really shitty. Anything on the Orlando side?
Fultz is questionable, but I don't care. I don't want anything to do with this game.
So Boston is interesting because they don't have any bigs left. Luke Cornett would have been the backup value guy, but he's out. Al Horford out. We're looking at Lamar Stevens and Sam Hauser and guys like that playing center.
Yeah, we were just talking about him yesterday. I was like, I'm not playing fucking Sam Hauser, but He's 4'9". I don't really like that, but he'll play probably. So there's that. Porzingis might play though. So if Porzingis is in, I'm just gonna like ignore that. I don't care.
I just think doubtful's doubtful, and he's not going to play.
But oh,
he's
doubtful. I thought he's questionable for some reason. Okay, well, even so, I don't know. The usage is just going to be Tatum, Jalen, Drew. Like you think the big is going to like if Hauser was like 3.5 or 4 flat, sure, maybe I'd consider him. 4.9 feels a little bit steep.
Yeah, he's just standing out there and shooting corner threes, so you're not really missing out on much.
It could be fine. I'm not saying he's like out of play. I just don't feel good about it.
He's just not a good per minute guy. The minutes should be fine, but it's a tough sell, to say the least. I do think Derek White's fine. He should see more usage without Porzingis, and Brown is questionable. And if he sits, then we might have to play some of these guys.
I think I'd rather go Drew there if that's the case. Drew is cheaper and projects just about the same. I think Drew actually, he's probably the only guy here that looks pretty interesting.
I suppose they could resort to Neemias Keita at center. He's 3K flat. He has played 3 games for them.
Yeah, if he starts.
He's really the only big left, and if he starts, then maybe there's your value guy. Center only, which isn't great, but I suppose there's potential there. If he comes off the bench, I really don't know how you play him with any confidence, especially if he's going to be somewhat popular.
By the way, center only doesn't bother me that much on the slate since I'm not really that interested in paying for Embiid, and a lot of these good centers that we would like are power forward eligible. So, like if you go Richards and this Boston guy, that could be a good way to start if he starts.
That game sucks. So let's go to the next one. Toronto and Atlanta, another game that's a rematch of a Wednesday game. Atlanta is a 2-point underdog on the road. Jalen Johnson still out. DeAndre Hunter questionable after missing the last 2 games. What do you like here?
I like Trey. He is not exactly a true pivot off of Halliburton, but he's a lot cheaper and projects not that far beneath him. So I like him a lot. And that's probably it for the Hawks. Yeah, that's probably it for the Hawks.
We saw Wes Matthews start the last game and play 14 minutes. I suppose Bogdan Bogdanovic is in play. He's been playing more minutes with Hunter out. Not cheap, but don't mind that given the minutes. Decent per minute guy as well. Toronto is a team that looks better. Atlanta is one of those glorious matchups we like to target every single night. We did on Wednesday. These guys are a little more expensive than they were that night, but again, I think it's a great spot for pretty much all 5 starters.
Yeah. Siakam looks awesome in this spot. He crushed last game. The only thing is these guys are going to be pretty chalky. Dennis Schroeder is like 43% owned right now, projected. That's disgusting. So there's that. So yeah, the ownership thing is a little bit tricky, but the prices are good and the matchup is great. So stacking Raptors is certainly a fine way to go.
I think Scotty Barnes is my favorite play on the whole slate. At point guard, small forward eligibility, 9,000 flat. Does a little bit of everything. High minutes floor, great matchup. Not sure what more you'd want. And then Pirtle for 59. His minutes have been down lately, but Atlanta plays Okongwu and Capella 48 minutes. So I don't think he'll get played off the floor. We saw him play 32 in this spot the other night. He murdered. He's not much more expensive. He's my favorite mid-range center on the whole slate. I will gladly play him for 500 more than Nick Richards.
You could probably play them together too. I think I'm with you on Scotty Barnes, especially when you look at the ownership. He's projecting for 6.5, like a really tiny fraction of the ownership everybody else is going to be getting. And for Pirtle, the only problem is 27% owned projection right now. So like if he's going to be super chalky and people are chasing that last game, maybe you go the other way and, bank on him, not being awesome again. Certainly possible considering who he is.
Okay, we took a break there. for a few minutes, but we're back. So we talked about the Celtics situation earlier with all their bigs out. We're now looking at Nemias Queta for real. 3K flat, center only. Good per minute guy dating back to his time with the Kings. Possibly will start for them by default. I mean, Orlando is not the biggest team, but they do start Goga. They can play Mo Wagner off the bench. It's easy to see this game going small. So I am nervous about Queta if he doesn't start. Like, that's risky because if he doesn't start, there is a chance he just may not play at all.
Right.
But if he does, I'm not really sure how you get away from him, especially in a single entry build for the minimum.
Yeah. Right now he's projecting for 24 minutes and 21 fantasy points. You cannot pass up on that. If he does not start, I am totally fine with fading and like 60% of the field getting totally screwed over. But if he starts, that's a smash play. So I just don't see any way around it.
They also have O'Shea Brissett. Not really a center. He's more of a forward, but he's also 3K flat. Possibly could see 20-ish minutes. If he starts, I suppose he becomes a priority, power forward only. But this game starts 30 minutes after lock, so it's not a guarantee that we will have the lineup in time. So plan accordingly. Ideally, we can punt with one of them, but there's also a scenario in which neither is playable. So just stay tuned for that. Let's see. Moving on to the penultimate game of the night, Houston at Memphis, another rematch from Wednesday. Houston's favored by 3.5 on the road. Very low total, lowest total on the slate at 212. Let's see. Amen Thompson is questionable for Houston, and Jayshawn Tate is doubtful. Anything you see on the Rocket side?
I mean, Şengün and Van Fleet are fine, but they're not priorities. Nobody else stands out to me for Houston. I like them just fine, but the total sucks, and it could be a blowout. So I just like, there's so many other good plays. I just don't see myself getting into them.
I don't mind Jabari Smith for 6K. He's been rebounding like crazy lately.
Oh, wow, he sure has.
Not a big usage guy, but not a bad salary either. Another guy that's been dominating is Tari Eason off the bench. He's been closing over the dreadful Jalen Green. 52 is high for him relative to where he normally is, but the minutes have been up.
He has.
Like I said, he's been closing.
Really
I don't mind that as a tournament play.
No, I didn't realize how much he'd been wrecking. And then, if it blows out, he's even more likely to close out. So, yeah, he's interesting. And Jabari's fine, especially if you're flirting with like Brandon Miller and stuff. And he's a fine pivot off of Brandon Miller, or anybody in that range, or Denny, like we were talking about before. So I don't think he's either. 20% protection, so he'll have interest.
I just don't think people want to play this game, so I could see him coming in under that.
Yeah.
Memphis, Desmond Bain questionable, missed the last game. David Roddy started. Vince Williams started the last game for them. Weak per minute guys, but I guess Roddy's okay. Again, I played Derrick Rose the other night. He was quite good. I would have a lot of interest in him. If Bain is out, he will see increased usage. The minutes should be a little more secure as well, because they really don't have anyone except for Jackson that gets usage. So if Bain's out, I think Rose by default for 5K is a great value.
Yep, and they're obviously without Kennard and Smart too, so somebody's got to play, And if the game's close, it looks like Rose will be a major benefactor. So I like Rose at that price. Roddy and Vince are fine. It's just the matchup sucks and the total sucks. But as far as value, like they are there, that they are viable.
Are you playing Jaren Jackson if Bain's out?
You can. I got lucky in the other slate that I used him on. Don't think I'm gonna do it twice though, especially because Siakam is a better play. He's in a better spot and he's cheaper. But I bet you Jaren won't be owned.
Yeah, especially if that news is post-lock like it was the other day. I mean, he's put up back-to-back 40-point games.
Well, that's
obviously, that's Chase. The matchup sucks, but 85, not necessarily overpriced either. I have a lot of interest in him if Bain misses another game for sure.
Yeah, right now he's projecting for 3% ownership. I would imagine that spikes considerably if Bane's actually out. I kind of just hope
Maybe.
Bane and I can ignore this stuff.
It depends on when it comes out. If it comes out after lock, I mean, we
That's
saw Harden last night. Harden was like
yeah.
10 to 13% owned in single
I
entry stuff.
was really surprised by that.
I mean, it was really late news. It probably came out an hour before the game started. So keep stay on your. I'm gonna edit that out. Stay on your toes. And one more game tonight. 2 hours after every other game. Shouldn't even be on the slate, but it is. Phoenix hosting the Knicks. 5-point favorites are the Suns. 232.5 total. Phoenix has all their guys, all the stars at least. Eric Gordon's questionable. We got news Grayson Allen will play.
Changes everything.
No minutes limit on Grayson Allen. I know you wanted to hear that as well. Yeah. For the Knicks, obviously Mitch Robinson's still out. I should have researched this. Do you know if Hartenstein started the last game or if they still went with Sims?
I don't know if he started, but he did play a lot.
Yeah, like even if Sims starts, I don't think Sims is really playable. He just doesn't play enough to be worth the while.
Yeah, it doesn't give me an update here, but I don't think that matters. He's going to play. He's going to approach 30 minutes off the bench, especially because Sims sucks.
Sims. It's like Sims did start.
Okay, yeah. So they don't need a high usage guy in there, and Hartenstein is a good bench guy for providing some offense and stuff. So, yeah, I like him. I think the price is okay, and I just don't know if he's gonna be a priority because obviously you have Keita and then Nick Richards and Pirtle, and there's a lot of different. Center always has value for some reason, but there's a lot of different ways you can go. I just don't think he's going to be a priority. I wish some of these centers would have power forward eligibility as well, because that could make them a little more appealing. Oh, by the way, let's not look over this though. I love Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle here. I mean, nobody's gonna be out of this game like at all. And it's a hammer game. It's got a decent total. It's got a good spread. Devin Booker, KD, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, all those studs, they're going to go overlooked. There's guys who are seemingly in much better spots or better prices or what have you. So nobody's really going to be on this game. There'll be a little bit of ownership, but KD is going to be completely unowned. Brunson's going to be completely unowned. So I'm intrigued by this for tournaments. For a single entry, eating a lot of chalk, and then you end with like Brunson and maybe KD or Brunson alone, something like that. It could be appealing.
It is easier to get to with Keita now as a punt. Obviously, you can pile up more high-priced studs. I prefer Randall, I think, to Brunson. Both look underpriced, though. Like, you could easily sell on either of them. Certainly wouldn't play them together, but individually, they are both fun plays.
Worth noting that, like, I don't know if I would really force a Suns run back here because the Suns are like completely healthy outside of one depth guy not being in. Okogie, he's the only one who's not in. So, wait, Eric Gordon is questionable, so he might not play. But Grayson Allen's back. Brad Beal's in. Booker and KD are both there. Nurk is there. So, like, I don't think I would force a Suns guy here. They're fine. And I like Julius Randle too. He projects better by 6 points, but he also actually projects for 50% ownership. So for an ownership play and a price play, I would actually probably prefer Brunson. But I like Julius just fine.
I think Randall has more alternatives in his range with Jaren Jackson and Siakam and stuff. Could limit his ownership quite a bit, I would think. I agree with you on Phoenix, though. You know, with everyone healthy, everyone's kind of overpriced. Now that Beal's back, Nurkic is expensive. KD and Booker are pricey. Beal's not overpriced necessarily for Beal in a normal scenario. And we did see him play 34 minutes in the last game. The issue is, you know, there's just a lot of usage to be spread out among three dudes, and he seems to be a distant third in the pecking order. So not much here. Eric Gordon doesn't matter at all to me.
No. If you're going to play a Sun, I think it's KD. He projects for no ownership. His actual fantasy points projection isn't amazing. It's only at like 44.6, but he easily can top that. And he's an interesting pivot off of like Wemby or Siakam, who's going to be chalky, or any of these other guys we've been talking about, like Jaren Jackson, Julius Randle, if they end up garnering ownership, you have to pay up a little bit more to get them. But I mean, KD unowned to end the slate is pretty interesting.
Okay, I think that'll wrap it up for the game by game section. We can move on to kind of an overview from an ownership standpoint. Chalk rating. We've been over it with guys like Nick Richards, now Neemias Queta. Based on projections, he's going to be the most popular player on the slate as a 3K center. We've been over it recently. Not really much more to break down. If he starts, it's hard to fade him. If he doesn't start, he becomes quite the risk. But if he starts, I assume that's just chalk. We're both cramming in there.
Yep. We can just go right to the next thing because that's. I mean, unless you want to just quickly talk about a chalky guy, another chalky guy that you're going to eat gladly.
Brandon Miller was the one I was on earlier. There are alternatives, like you said. Jabari Smith is right there. OG Anunoby is okay. He's more expensive than he was the other night, but he shouldn't be the chalkiest player on the slate like he was on Wednesday. I think Pirtle is chalk I'm also eating. I understand it ties up both center spots, but it's really hard for me to get away from it at 5'9" with the matchup against Atlanta on the other side.
Yeah, I really am a little bit. I mean, a lot can change. Obviously, I'm a little bit undecided on how I'm going to play out my lineup here, but I'm going to eat the Queta chalk as long as he starts. And then after that, like, I don't see any chalky guys that. Oh, Wemby. I'll eat the Wemby chalk. That's what I'll do. But everything else, like in the top 10, 15 of ownership percentage right now, maybe Siakam. Other than that, I don't think I'm going to force those guys in. They're all fine. Like Miller, Schroeder, Jabari, those guys are fine. I just don't want to prioritize them or force them in necessarily.
It's hard to pass on Anthony Davis too. Projecting to be popular with LeBron projected in. If LeBron is out, AD becomes the play of the slate.
Sure.
But I don't think LeBron's going to miss. I think he's going to play. I guess we kind of went over chalk we're fading. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Well, yeah, I guess I kind of did that at the same time, didn't I? Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have anything else to add there because other than shit could change, you know?
Shit could change. Words to live by.
It's true. All right, we are running over a little bit here. We'll try to end at the 40-minute mark, I guess. I don't know. We ran a little bit over. This is probably the part where we just kind of hash up everything we've talked about and come to a single entry lineup that we like. As noted, injuries and what have you can change what we're going to do, and will change what you're going to do. So just keep that in mind. So where are you sitting right now as far as the lineup you like the most?
Well, I haven't built one yet, but obviously it starts with Queta, plugging him right in at center.
Yeah, it does start with Queta.
I mentioned Scotty Barnes was kind of my conviction play. I would like to play him at probably small forward. I think that's the weaker position. You can play him at point guard too, but small forward seems to be the way to go with him. Any objections to that?
No, I'm not. I'm not against him as a play. The problem is there's just once you start paying up for 2 or 3 guys, you're really just starting to use a lot of shitty players.
I don't mind taking a risk and kind of playing for Bane to be out and then kind of opening up the Rose salary saver.
I don't mind that at all, actually.
Rose is still starting either way, so even if Bane plays, it's not like he's going to potentially murder you. I think he's okay, but certainly far more appealing if Bane sits.
Yeah. Gosh. It feels weird using Memphis guys in a game like that, though.
Yeah, but it should be close. I mean, based on the spread and stuff, so you never know.
It's true.
Well, Brandon Miller in the mid-range, David Roddy a cheapie. I don't know. We're kind of losing some steam here.
Okay, so I thought you were gonna continue with the lineup you were liking.
I mean, I haven't built the lineup. I was just kind of looking through and seeing.
Okay, so this segment we'll have to iron out a little bit for next time. Okay, but this is where I'm at right now, and it's majorly subject to change. I like Brunson as an unowned hammer play, so I'm going to start off with Brunson. Projects for 40 fantasy points and no ownership. And then I like the Koulibaly. How do you say his name?
Koulibaly.
Koulibaly. Okay, I like him. I like the price against the Pacers. He's going to play, even if they get blown out. I think he's going to play. So I like him. I'm going to go David Roddy for now. He's going to start. He's going to play 30 minutes. I hate the total. I hate the matchup, but he's cheap. And right now we don't have a lot of cheap plays. I like Wemby, Keita. I'll go Rose, Siakam, and Dennis Schroeder. I just heard my cat. And he's like, he ran across the room freaking out. So I was like, what's going on here?
Classic cat.
So I will eat the Schroeder chalk here. Siakam is chalky. Wemby's a little bit chalky. Brunson is where I get different. And then some of these value guys I'm playing may not garner a lot of ownership too. I'm hoping things open up though.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty grim out there at the moment from a value standpoint. Let's see what I can do here. So far, I have Derrick Rose, Brandon Miller, Avdia, Randall, Keita, Halliburton, Richards at center. Leaves me 4,300 in the Vince Williams, Zaire Williams range. Najee Marshall is a guy we should have mentioned as a great value if Zion is out for the Pelicans. This is just a grim no-fly zone. I suppose Jericho Sims. Yeah. It's not where you want to be.
No. Oh, by the way, I'm going to have to tweak this a little bit because I do like Nick Richards a lot. If PJ is out.
Did he leave the last game early? Is that why he played 40 minutes?
PJ played 4 minutes last game, yeah. So, I mean, Nick Richards is going to play a lot if PJ doesn't play.
Here's what I landed on. Rose, Miller, Avdia, Randall, Keita, Halliburton, Roddy, Hartenstein.
Okay, so I'm gonna change this a little bit on the fly here. Let's see where this gets me. Ooh, you might
this
like
segment
this
is struggling.
No, well, this is the beauty of it. It evolves. Okay, here we go. Jalen Brunson, Brandon Miller, Vince Williams, Wemby, Keita, Rose, Scotty Barnes, Nick Richards. I think that is the best iteration of this that I've seen so far, and the one I like the most. It does depend on who starts, so we'll see.
We shall see. We should probably call it here. I think we're running over. So,
yep, we got the gist of it in. But like always, obviously, pay attention to the news that comes out and take some of our suggestions with a grain of salt, just because it is pretty early. It's 1:52 Central for me right now, and I mean, in the next 3, 4, 5 hours, it's going to change quite a bit. Oh, and I would probably just personally, I'm going to fade the Boston and Philly game the best I can, but I do want Keita. He's the only guy that I want in the Boston game. And then you keep things open just in case LeBron or Brower are out or something crazy happens, after the first 3 or 4 games, That's just what I prefer to do, just keep it flexible.
Okay, I think that'll wrap it up here. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we helped you in some way. As always, be sure to keep an eye on news, subscribe to the channel if you were into this, and we'll be back with more breakdowns in the future.